When was the last time you lost the deal you were sure you had already won, drove home replaying every number in your head, trying to find the flaw in your math, when the math was never actually the problem? You build a story to survive the drive home. Your buyer sits on 6 boards. Your buyer has an engineering degree. Your buyer has spent 30 years making decisions with a spreadsheet open. So whatever this brain science thing is, it surely does not apply in that room, to that person, to your industry. That belief is currently the single most expensive thing you tell yourself, and it deserves a proper dismantling before we go any further. Rational buyers do not exist. Not in your industry, not in any industry, not even in a room full of engineers who would be personally offended by the suggestion. Every human being on the planet carries a brain built roughly hundreds of thousands of years ago, wired first for survival and only second for spreadsheets. And that older brain makes its decisions about you long before your slide deck even opens. The resistance to this idea is almost always loudest in the smartest room in the building. The more letters someone has after their name, the more personally insulted they feel about the suggestion that a threat detector older than language itself gets a vote in a boardroom. That reaction is not evidence against the mechanism. It is the mechanism defending its own authority the exact way it defends everything else it does not want examined. Try this on yourself before you argue the point further. Think about the last major purchase in your own life you were completely certain was a rational decision. The car, the watch, the house in the neighborhood you swore were strictly about school districts and commute times. Now be honest about how much of that decision was actually made walking through the front door before a single spec sheet got reviewed, based on nothing more than whether the place felt right the second you walked in. If it happened to you buying a house, it is happening to your buyer deciding whether to trust your company with a 6-figure contract. Years ago, competition-level skydiving took up a serious part of my life, and that eventually led to becoming the first person to fly a wingsuit over the North Pole. Getting there took a lot of jumps and a lot of hours of drills, the kind of technical discipline most people never touch in any part of their life. Training built specifically to override instinct so that procedure runs the show even in freefall, even at altitude, even in temperatures that can stop a heart in minutes. Temperature at altitude over the Arctic that day was cold enough to end a simple life through simple exposure within minutes. The margin for error was so close to zero, and every single procedure had been drilled into muscle memory specifically so conscious thought would not be needed to survive the jump. That is what real technical mastery looks like. It removes the need to think. It does not remove the need to feel. None of that training made the fear disappear. Standing at the open door, every checklist memorized, every variable accounted for, the body still fired the exact same signal at first-time jumper feels. The same threat response, the same primal vote cast before a single conscious thought had time to catch up. Training does not silence that vote. Training only teaches you to move despite it. That single fact is the whole argument for the next few minutes. If years of elite technical training could not override the primal brain of the person doing the jumping, no MBA and no engineering degree and no 30 years behind a desk is going to override it in the person sitting across the table from you either. Your buyer is not an exception to the rule the body already proved at 30,000 feet over the ice. Your buyer is a confirmation of it. This is not a metaphor stretched to fit a sales lesson. It's the same nervous system, running the same ancient software, whether it is standing at the door of an aircraft over the Arctic or sitting across the conference table deciding whether to sign with you. The stakes are different. The wiring is identical. Here is the exact mechanism running underneath every meeting you walk into, whether your buyer knows it or not, whether you have ever noticed it or not. Neuroscience gives it a dozen different names depending on which paper you read, but inside Happy Brains, it has one name: the 11-second brain scan, and it runs in 3 stages before your buyer has consciously processed a single word of your pitch. Second 0 through 3, the threat scan. The oldest part of the brain checks exactly one question: is it safe to be near this person? And it reads eye contact, proximity, and the smallest flicker of hesitation on your face before your mouth has even opened. Seconds 4 through 7, the status scan. Are you above this buyer, equal to them, or beneath them? And the brain reads that from posture, voice, and whether your energy matches the room. Then quietly decides whether you have earned the right to be listened to at all. Second 8 through 11, the likability scan. Does the room want you in it? Not tolerate you, want you. And that decision runs entirely on warmth signals no slide deck has ever influenced. By second 12, your buyer's logical brain finally wakes up, yay, and gets to work, except its real job at that point is not deciding anything. Its job is constructing a rational-sounding justification for a decision 3 older, faster parts of the brain already made without asking anyone's permission. Picture the exact meeting. Your proposal sits on the table next to a competitor's. Your price is fair, your delivery timeline is realistic, your references check out, and 40 minutes in, you can feel the room drifting even though nobody has said a single critical word out loud. That drift was never about your content. That drift started around second 8 when the room quietly decided it did not want you in it. And every slide after that was performing for an audience that had already left the building mentally, politely nodding on the way out. Every dollar of revenue you believe you lost to price or to a competitor's feature or to bad timing deserves a honest question first. Did you actually lose on substance, or did you lose the room in the first 11 seconds and spend the rest of the meeting arguing your way out of a decision that had already happened without you? The same scan runs before a single word gets read in a cold email or a LinkedIn message too. A prospect either feels safe enough to keep reading past the first line, ranks you high enough to take the ask seriously, and likes you enough to actually reply, or the message dies in 3 seconds without you ever knowing which of the 3 checks it failed. That silence you have been calling a low response rate is not a copywriting problem first. It's an 11-second problem wearing a copywriting costume. This is where the real revenue math gets ugly. A lost deal is never actually one lost contract. It is every renewal that deal would have produced, every referral that client would have quietly made on your behalf, and referred clients are consistently more profitable than the ones you have to go find yourself. You are not just losing this quarter's number. You are losing years of compounding revenue you will never see on a report because you will never know it was supposed to exist. Here is the part most consultants will not say out loud because it does not sound generous enough for a keynote stage. This is not unfair. It's not a broken system waiting to be fixed with better marketing. It is how a 200,000 and even more year-old brain has always evaluated a stranger, and it is not going to change to accommodate your product roadmap. At this point, the CFO living in your head is arguing back. Fine for a marketing pitch, that voice says, but my buyer runs numbers for a living. My buyer would never let a gut feeling override a spreadsheet. Every buyer runs numbers for a living. Every buyer also has an amygdala, a status detector, and a warmth response. Because every buyer is, before anything else, a human nervous system wearing a job title. CFOs are not the exception to this rule. CFOs are simply better trained at hiding the vote after it has already been cast, which makes them harder to read, not immune to the mechanism. Every technique taught inside Happy Brain starts from the same diagnostic question. Which of the three scans is actually failing in your specific business, with your specific buyers, in your specific industry? Because the fix for a threat problem looks nothing like the fix for a likability problem, and guessing wrong wastes another quarter you don't have to waste. 20 years inside IBM, HP, AOL, Bosch, Steelcase, and many more provided a front row seats to this exact pattern playing out at the highest levels of corporate decision-making long before a PhD in artificial intelligence and a certified neuromarketing instructor credential ever gave it a name. The pattern was always running in every one of those rooms. It simply did not have a name yet. None of this means the work sitting behind your product, your pricing, and your positioning was wasted. It means that work only gets heard once you have already passed a scan that has nothing to do with any of it. Find out exactly what your first 11 seconds is costing your revenue right now. Not as a theory, as an actual number using the free first impression cost calculator link in the description below. Be great.